John Balma started the company in February 1967, actually Valentine's Day, I think February 14th, 1967. And I met John probably in the early 1970s and then came here in June of 1978.
When I first started working with Eastbrook, we were building less than 100 homes a year, and a lot of them were starter homes.
Back in the 80s, Eastbrook was more of a first-time home builder trying to provide the most amount of home for the money.
Average price for a home might have been $80,000 to $90,000 for a starter home. A lot of the properties were located in Kentwood back then.
There was only like 5 people there when I started, and it was John and Mick and myself. It was a one-girl office, and I'll never forget I interviewed with John, and John asked me, I was probably 22, 23, to sit down and write down my life goals. And I remember looking at him like, I can tell you what I want to do this week, but for my life, we just didn't talk about those things. You know, I remember just being so awestruck with him asking me what my goals were, and I needed to have goals, and I needed to save for retirement, and he was very encouraging to help people with the future. Always wanted to help people, always wanted to give somebody a job.
My first job was probably when Mick started with Eastbrook, probably shortly after that in the 70s or something like that. And one summer I moved sprinklers that I believe was the office buildings back then.
My very first job was at Old Farm Shores, which is an apartment complex that we built, and I walked around and cleaned up around all the dumpsters, and anybody who couldn't get their trash into the dumpsters, it was my job to get it in there.
John, for some reason, took me under his wing. Of course, he called me multiple names, didn't usually get it right. But, you know, John would be the kind of guy that would expect me to work till 8 o'clock at night, but then he would be over at my house Saturday morning just to have fun.
He was a bit of a character. You could never be for sure exactly how he was thinking and what he was thinking, but he was fun. He liked to have a good time, and he liked to just enjoy the moment.
Definitely a character. Surprisingly enough, if I drive by the cemetery where John is buried, I will still, you know, put my hand out the window and wave to John. He really had a big impact on my life.
He was creative. He taught me a lot of things from the creativity side of the business, and was a good guy just to let me go and do things by trial and error, and that was a big learning curve for me.
We've always felt that the communities are as or more important than the homes themselves. So we try to start with the end in mind. That's something I hear my dad say from time to time. Start with the end in mind.
We've always been energy conscious and had a desire to be energy efficient in our homes. But when we were introduced to Don Nelson, D.R. Nelson Associates, he really introduced us to the science of energy efficiency, and recognizing that it wasn't just about adding more insulation to the home. It was really about stopping the air infiltration, building a better home, not just putting more into it.
In the 1990s, we started doing master plan communities. We got very active in places like Bailey's Grove, Clements Mill. And Bailey's Grove is probably still the largest master plan community that we have done, or anybody has done in the Grand Rapids area.
Every tree we can preserve within the context of our engineering of the site is a benefit to us, and it's also a benefit to the future homeowners and the community at large.
We worked very hard to save all the large natural trees that were there. We transplanted thousands and thousands of trees and brought in additional species of trees just to make a good canopy.
Are there certain physical characteristics that we can preserve and work with? That's something we always try to look for, whether it's rows of trees on a farming piece of property or particularly interesting wooded sections of a piece of property that we'll try to work around. Those are things that in the end make a community different than some developers who choose to go in there and just and fully maximize the density and not necessarily work around the physical assets that land often provides to you.
We earned a number of awards for that. One of the ones I'm proudest of is from the National Audubon Society for working with trees. We worked very hard to save all the large natural trees that were there. We also received an award from the Department of Natural Resources for working with water and improving water quality. We'd worked on ideas and we received an award from the Metro Council, which is an area, in this area it's various governments that come together and the Metropolitan Council. And that In the 2000s, we also expanded our territory. We reached out into the Holland to Muskegon market and expanded there quite a bit. So it was a big area of growth for us. And then like every builder, we experienced the 2006 through 2010 recession. We were fortunate, in my opinion. We have always done a lot of statistical analysis, and I had a consultant out of Louisiana that I worked with for 20 years. And he was very good at helping us understand what was happening in the economy, and we probably got a head start on looking into the future.
Eastbrook's always been a pretty fiscally conservative type company. We've always saved money each and every year, put it in kind of a rainy day fund.
Starting in 2010, we were sensing that the recovery was imminent, and that while it wasn't quite here at that point, but it was time for us to start acquiring new communities and new projects.
So we shifted from a mentality of having to develop everything we built on to taking advantage of or pursuing opportunities that were there. And we worked with banks on bulk acquisitions, we worked with banks on lot takedown agreements, and we did the same with developers. And what this did, it was actually got us into geographic areas that we had not yet built in previously.
And anywhere from buying a community as small as 8 lots to the largest being Macatawa Legends Golf and Country Club, which included buying a golf course and community as well as all the surrounding land and recreating that community. So from 8 units to 500 units. And that was a great opportunity for us to be able to come into the market when things were slower and see a bit into the future again and see that the market was poised for a recovery, although it wasn't quite there, and begin to be prepared for that.
Gave us additional work for our people to do. We kept our trade contractor partners busy, enabled the company to grow pretty significantly with those purchases that we couldn't have done if we didn't have that rainy day fund set aside.
There's an old saying that basically says, if you do what you love and love what you do, you never work a day in your life. That's very much, I think, how, at least I know how I feel and most of the people here at Eastbrook feel. And it's kind of a unique place, and that's all created by the culture that we're in, as well as the industry.
I think, again, it comes to a passion, and I think it comes to really wanting to build this as if you're building it for a family member. If you're building it for your mom or your brother, or, your grandpa and grandma, it's something that you really take pride in doing.
Mick has always had that motto, that what we're building for someone, this is their home, this is where they spend their holidays, and this is where they raise their children. And he's always had that vision of making sure that he's creating a place where people can come home to.
It is truly, a family-style culture. But one thing about all the employees here is everybody is extremely passionate about what they're doing. They come with a smile on their face each and every day.
For us, it's knowing that these families, you know, it's a big purchase, and it may be their only home they've ever purchased or they ever will purchase. It could be a lifelong house. And as we look at it, we think of all the memories they make there.
There was an old saying in the West that used to ride for the brand. So, you know, I've always taken that to heart. I don't care how long I've worked in a week. If Mick called me, I would be there. I would do anything they asked me to do because he's always taken care of me in everything that I've needed.
Life is good. To be able to do what we do is an amazing thing. And I hope that the one thing we can convey in our celebration of our 50 years is we love doing what we're doing. And I think that is why we've been here for 50 years.
This company is made up of fantastic people. Often companies will say, well, we're like a family, but there really is a family atmosphere here. People care about one another. They enjoy coming to work. It is a good group of people. And candidly, our success is really due to that group of people that goes beyond the call of duty day in and day out.